You are currently sitting in a device that is slowly breaking your spine. It is the most dangerous object in your house. It is not your stove. It is not your power tools. It is not the car in your garage. It is your chair. You have been told that sitting is resting. You have been told that comfort means being propped up at a 90-degree angle, motionless, for 8 to 10 hours a day. Your employer bought you an expensive ergonomic chair. Your doctor told you to mind your posture. The furniture industry sold you lumbar support pillows and adjustable armrests and mesh backs that breathe. But your body does not care about ergonomics. Your body views the chair as a cast, and just like a broken arm locked in a cast begins to wither. Your hips, your glutes, and your pelvic floor are withering right now. As you watch this video, as you read emails, as you commute, as you eat dinner. Most adults will deal with meaningful low back pain at some point in their lives. The numbers vary by definition, but estimates typically range from 60 to 80% of the population. Globally, low back pain consistently ranks as the leading cause of years lived with disability. It is one of the most expensive health problems in modern economies because it disables working-age adults in their most productive years. And the cause is not simply aging. It is not just lifting wrong. It is not purely genetics. The cause is that we have forgotten how to hold ourselves against gravity. Back pain existed historically. Hard labor wrecked bodies too. Medieval peasants suffered arthritis, injuries, and the brutal wear of repetitive work. But modern life adds a newer driver. Hours of supported immobility in a posture our tissues adapt to. Meanwhile, a medieval peasant squatting by a fire to cook his meal was performing an athletic feat that you likely cannot sustain for more than 30 seconds. He did not need a lumbar support pillow. He had a pelvis that functioned. He did not need orthotics. He had glutes that fired. He did not need a standing desk or a balance ball or a posture corrector. He had a lifestyle that demanded constant movement and variable positioning. Today, we are going to expose the sitting disease. We are going to look at the biology of the Iliopsoas, one of the most influential muscles in posture and gait, and how your office job encourages it to shorten until it pulls your spine out of alignment. We are going to examine the research on modern hunter-gatherers and show that humans were never designed to sit passively. We were designed to rest actively, and we are going to teach you how to reclaim the resting positions that kept human spines more resilient for 200,000 years. Before we start, I want you to do something. Stand up, right now. Pause this video if you have to. Keep your heels flat on the ground. Now squat all the way down until your hamstrings touch your calves. Keep your back straight. Do not let your heels rise. Can you stay there comfortably for 5 minutes? Can you stay there for 1 minute? Or do you immediately fall backward? If you fell, if your heels lifted, if you felt like you were about to tip over, you need to watch this video. Because that inability to squat is not just a flexibility problem. It is a symptom. It is evidence of a biomechanical adaptation that has been unfolding in your body for decades. Let us start with the mechanism of the damage. The villain of this story is a muscle deep inside your core called the Iliopsoas. You have probably never heard of it. Your doctor might not have mentioned it, but it is one of the most influential muscles in posture and gait, with outsized influence on how you stand, walk, and hold yourself upright. The Iliopsoas is actually two muscles that function as one. The psoas major attaches to the sides of your lumbar vertebrae, those 5 bones in your lower back. It runs down through your pelvis. The iliacus attaches to the inside of your hip bone. They merge together and grab onto the lesser trochanter of your femur, your thigh bone. This is the deepest muscle in your body. You cannot see it. You cannot touch it, but it controls everything. When you walk, the Iliopsoas pulls your leg forward. Every step you take begins with this muscle contracting. When you stand upright, the Iliopsoas stabilizes your lumbar spine. It is part of the muscular corset that holds you vertical against the constant pull of gravity. When you run, when you kick, when you climb stairs, when you get out of bed in the morning, the Iliopsoas is doing work. But when you sit in a chair, something different happens. Your hips are locked in a state of permanent flexion. The angle between your torso and your thighs is around 90 degrees, sometimes less if you slouch. In this position, the iliopsoas is shortened. It goes slack. It has nothing to do. And because you sit for hours a day, because you have been sitting for hours a day since you were 6 years old in a school desk, your body adapts. It thinks this shortened position is the new normal. This is called adaptive shortening. Hours a day in hip flexion encourages the hip flexors to adapt toward that shortened range. The muscle fibers remodel themselves. The fascia around the muscle contracts and hardens. The neural pathways that control the muscle recalibrate to this new length. The biology is ruthless. Use it or lose it. Your body is not sentimental. If you do not use a muscle through its full range of motion, your body assumes you do not need that range. It eliminates what it perceives as waste. Now watch what happens when you finally stand up. That shortened iliopsoas is now a tight tether. When you try to extend your hips, when you try to stand up straight, that tightness pulls your lumbar spine forward. It tilts your pelvis anteriorly. This is called anterior pelvic tilt. Look at yourself from the side in a mirror. Does your lower back curve dramatically inward? Does your belly protrude even though you are not overweight? Does your butt stick out behind you? That is anterior pelvic tilt. That is the iliopsoas winning the war against your spine. And here is the physics of why this matters. Your lumbar discs are under compression even when you stand relaxed. The weight of your upper body presses down through those vertebrae. In a neutral spine, that force is distributed evenly across the disc. But in anterior pelvic tilt, the front of the disc is compressed while the back of the disc is stretched. The force is concentrated on a smaller area instead of spread across the whole surface. Over time, this uneven loading can contribute to disc problems. This is one pathway to herniation. This is how the soft nucleus inside the disc can get squeezed backward until it bulges and presses on spinal nerves. That shooting pain down your leg? That sciatica that makes you gasp when you sneeze? The chair is often part of the story. But the damage does not stop with the iliopsoas. When your hip flexors are chronically tight, something happens to the opposing muscle group. Your glutes. The gluteus maximus is the largest muscle in the human body. It is the primary engine of hip extension. It is what should power you when you walk, when you climb, when you stand up from a seated position, when you lift heavy objects. Your glutes are designed to do the heavy lifting of daily life. But there is a neurological principle called reciprocal inhibition. When one muscle group is tight and overactive, the nervous system tends to dampen the opposing muscle group. It is a protective mechanism. The brain assumes that if the hip flexors are constantly engaged, the hip extensors should not fire at full strength. So your brain tells your glutes to quiet down. This is sometimes called gluteal amnesia. Your glutes become harder to activate on demand. You can test this right now. Stand up and squeeze your glutes as hard as you can. Do they fire immediately? Can you feel a strong, powerful contraction? Or does it feel like you are trying to send a signal to a phone with a dead battery? If your glutes feel weak, unresponsive, or difficult to activate, you may have developed this pattern. And this is where the cascade of dysfunction accelerates. When you need to lift a heavy box, your brain sends a signal to extend your hips. The glutes should do this work, but they are slow to respond. So your lower back compensates. The small erector spinae muscles designed for stability and fine motor control are suddenly asked to do the job of the largest muscle in your body. They are not built for this. They can fail. And that is when injuries happen. That is when you throw out your back picking up a laundry basket. It was not the laundry basket that hurt you. It was years of sitting that changed how your system functions. Now let us look at the traditional alternative. The peasant did not have an ergonomic Aeron chair. He did not have a Herman Miller standing desk. He did not have a posture corrector from Amazon. When he rested, he squatted. Or he sat on a low stool that required active balance. Or he knelt. Or he sat cross-legged on the ground. The deep squat is not an exercise. It is not something invented at a gym. It is a fundamental human resting position found across cultures throughout history. For most of human existence, this was how people rested. There were no chairs, there was no furniture. When you needed to rest, you dropped into a squat. Look at any toddler. Before we train it out of them, children squat with perfect form. Heels down, back straight, completely comfortable. They can stay there for minutes at a time, playing with toys, examining bugs, resting. That is the default human setting. That is what your body is designed to do. In a deep squat, the biomechanics are different from a chair. The load and shape of the lumbar spine changes. For many people, it can feel decompressive compared with chair sitting. The pressure distribution shifts. The Iliopsoas is not shortened in the problematic way it is when you sit in a chair. The hip is in deep flexion, but the muscle maintains a different length-tension relationship. The pelvic floor, that hammock of muscle that supports your organs, is stretched and engaged. It is working, it is maintaining tone. Some clinicians and researchers have proposed that regular squatting may support pelvic floor function. The logic is straightforward. Tissues that are loaded maintain their integrity better than tissues that hang slack. But pelvic floor health depends on many variables, and the evidence is still evolving. What we do have is interesting research on modern hunter-gatherers. A study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences examined the Hadza people of Tanzania, one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer populations on Earth. The researchers wanted to understand a paradox. Hunter-gatherers can spend a lot of time resting too. They are not doing CrossFit in the savannah. They are not constantly moving. But they do not have our pattern of diseases. They do not have our epidemic of metabolic dysfunction. Why? The researchers attached accelerometers and electromyography sensors to the Hadza to measure their muscle activity during rest. What they found was striking. When the Hadza rest, they squat or they kneel. And in these positions, their leg muscles are firing at low levels constantly. They are making micro-adjustments for balance. They are engaging their core. They are working, even while resting. The researchers called this active rest. Traditional resting postures keep baseline muscle activation going. They demand micro-adjustments. The body is not propped up by external support. Now look at you in your office chair. Your muscle activity drops dramatically. You are not working. You are propped up by external support. Enzymes involved in clearing fats from the bloodstream are suppressed by prolonged inactivity. Your metabolism shifts when your muscles go quiet for hours. Research in sedentary physiology has documented these effects. You are not resting in the way your body expects. You are in a state of supported stillness that sends very different signals to your tissues. So how did we get here? The villain is the Industrial Revolution and its definition of civilized. Somewhere along the line, Western culture decided that squatting was primitive, that sitting on the floor was dirty, that furniture was a sign of advancement. We invented chairs to separate ourselves from the earth. And then we designed schools that force children who naturally have perfect squat mechanics to sit in rigid chairs for 6 hours a day. We punish them for fidgeting. We tell them to sit still. We are literally training the function out of their bodies before they hit puberty. By age 10 or 12, most modern children have lost the ability to deep squat with their heels on the ground. The ankle dorsiflexion is gone, the hip mobility is gone, the motor pattern is erased. We changed their biomechanics. And then we wondered why they have back problems by age 30. And then we sold them ergonomics. The ergonomic chair is not a solution. It is a life support system for a body that is adapting to immobility. Lumbar support is a crutch for a spine that has lost its own muscular corset. The more support you give the body, the weaker the supporting structures tend to become. This is basic physiology. Muscles that are not challenged atrophy. Bones that are not loaded lose density. Joints that are not moved lose range of motion. Comfort is the enemy of resilience. Medieval life had brutal wear and tear, but it also forced constant variation, squatting to milk the cow, kneeling to pray, standing to cook, sitting on the ground to eat, walking on uneven terrain. Your joints were lubricated by constant movement through multiple positions. The modern lifestyle forces rigidity. You lock yourself into one position and stare at a screen for hours. Your fascia, the connective tissue that wraps every muscle and organ, adapts to that position. It loses its elasticity. You become shaped by your chair. Your body molds to the furniture, and then it cannot easily unmold. So how do we rebel? How do we undo years of adaptation to the sitting position? I am not telling you to quit your job. I am not telling you to burn your office furniture. We live in the modern world. We have to work within its constraints. But you must change how you exist within that environment. Step 1. The floor is your friend. When you are watching television at night, get off the couch. Sit on the floor. This one change will force your hips into new angles. You will naturally shift between sitting cross-legged, kneeling, extending one leg, squatting, lying on your side. There is no comfortable way to sit on a hard floor for long. So you move, you fidget, you change position. That fidgeting is the point. That variability is what your joints are starving for. Step 2. The couch stretch. This is the antidote to the chair. This is how you address the adaptive shortening of the Iliopsoas. Kneel down facing away from a wall. Put one knee on the ground right against the wall, with your shin going up the wall behind you. Step your other foot forward into a lunge position. Now squeeze your glutes and gently push your hips forward. You will feel an intense stretch in the front of your thigh and deep in your hip. That is your Iliopsoas being lengthened. That is the tether that has been pulling your spine out of alignment. Hold this position. Breathe. Work up to 2 minutes per side. That intensity is the feeling of your hip flexors being returned to a healthier length. Step 3. Variable work positions. If you have a standing desk, do not just stand there like a statue. Prolonged static standing has its own problems. It pulls blood in your legs. It compresses different structures. The key is variability. Stand for 30 minutes, then sit for 30, then stand again. When you stand, put a small box under your desk and prop one foot up. Then switch feet. Keep the pelvis moving. Keep shifting. When you sit, sit on the edge of the chair sometimes. Sit on a balance cushion. Sit on the floor if your workplace allows it. The specific position matters less than the constant changing of position. Step 4. Reclaim the squat. Every single day, try to spend 5 to 10 cumulative minutes in a deep squat position. This is not a workout. This is maintenance. This is the minimum dose to signal to your body that you still need this range of motion. Hold on to a door frame if you fall backward. Put yoga blocks or books under your heels if your ankles are too tight. Use whatever assistance you need. But get down there. You are not just stretching a muscle. You are sending a signal to your tissues that you are still a functional human being. You are telling your body that it still needs to be capable, that it cannot afford to let these ranges disappear. Over weeks and months, your ankles will loosen. Your hips will open. You will need less assistance. The position that felt impossible will start to feel more natural. You will be reclaiming movement capacity that humans maintained for most of our existence. If you have diagnosed spinal pathology, recent surgery, or nerve symptoms, scale these drills appropriately and get clearance from a clinician. This is general movement advice, not medical treatment. Medieval life had brutal trade-offs. They worked crushing hours. They were cold in winter. They were hungry when harvests failed. They died young by our standards. They had arthritis, injuries, and chronic conditions of their own. But their daily life forced constant variation. Squatting, kneeling, lifting, carrying, walking on uneven terrain. Their bodies experienced the movements they were designed to perform. Your daily life removes variation. Hours of supported stillness in positions your body adapts to. The chair is a tool. It has its uses. But do not let it become a cast that shapes you. Stand up, stretch that hip, get on the floor, reclaim your squat, take back your spine. How many of you failed the squat test at the beginning of this video? Be honest. And how many of you have unexplained lower back pain? Pain that comes and goes? Pain that doctors cannot quite pin down? There may be a connection. The test revealed a loss of function. The pain may be a downstream symptom. Tell me in the comments if you're going to try the floor challenge. 1 week of sitting on the floor instead of the couch when you watch television. Tell me if you're going to try the couch stretch. Tell me what you discover. Subscribe if you want more truth about how modern comfort is making us weak. Keep rebellious.